I actually want to ask you a question about two people, because right now what's happening in America is the MAGA party is actually infighting. The Groypers have declared war on the MAGA party, but on top of the Groypers, people have spoken out, myself included, to say that obviously you survive an assassination attempt, you're going to come out of it different, you know? And so I wanted to give Trump that runway and expect that, like, you got to be feeling a little bit differently. But it doesn't feel to me like the same Trump from 2015. And obviously he's the better candidate. I want Trump to win as well. But it does seem that now that he's accepted money, that he can't be as hardcore about certain topics and certain issues as he was back in 2015 when there was no chance he was going to win. You know, allegedly no chance he was going to win. And also nobody would give him money and no one would give him any airtime. And now it feels like, I don't know, like they've kind of, I don't want to say like buck broken him, but there's definitely a lot of consultants around money kind of always being the root of lies and evil, and I believe lies by omission, not saying things that you would say because, oh, well, this person just cut you a $50 million check. So I maybe stay away from that subject because that person is, you know, from Romania and these are the Romanian interests. So, you know,
good country choice there.
Yeah, it's a great country choice. Yeah,
smart. I'm a fan of Trump. Obviously, I hope he wins. My view on it, if I had to guess, and of course I have no data to back this up, I've just been around. Trump ran with a scorched earth policy and he got into power and they tried the whole Russiagate garbage. And I think Trump actually, in many ways, was very soft in his first administration. And he believed to a degree he could reason with these savages. And he thought that, you know, I should put Hillary in jail. I should do these things. But they'll take Trump Tower off me and they'll hit me with endless lawfare and it's going to be a mess. And I built this whole conglomerate of real estate and money and I'm still American and my kids live here. And if you really declare war with the deep state on that level, my children are going to end up in trouble. And there's a whole bunch to consider. So he tried to be nice to them. And then he realized that doesn't work because they rigged the election. When he left, they rigged the election. They keep hitting him with lawfare to try and stop him being president again. And I think there was part of his mind that said, you know what? I'm really going to get back into administration and teach these guys a lesson. And then I think something happened. Someone came along at some point, and I think perhaps that deal was done. And they said, look, you won't go to jail. Trump Tower will stay standing. Your kids will be safe in America. Everything's going to be okay. But you're going to have to bend on these few things. And I think that perhaps, I mean, fatigue makes power. Napoleon said it. Fatigue makes cowards of us all. And he's certainly no coward. But it's amazing how daily war can grind you down. I can talk from personal experience. After 3 years of every single day you're fighting, and that's what they do. They know that you're too powerful a person to take out with one hit, so they just, it's like hyenas on a lion, you know, and they just bite. If I had to guess, I'm still praying for a Trump victory. I still think he's going to be the best president. I still think he's going to do his very best. I just feel like somewhere along the line, something has been agreed to prevent post-presidency or post-death for his empire and for his children. There seems to be some kind of deal somewhere. Again, I have no data on this. I've just been around. I feel like, and you look at the streets, let's talk about the streets, right? And the gangs, and they're out and they're all killing each other. And then eventually you see one gang member walk past another gang member and they don't kill each other. And you're like, something's been talked about now. It was different before. And it just kind of feels that way to me. I don't know exactly what the deal is. I'm not even going to say that I blame the guy for taking it. But some kind of agreement's been made, I feel like.
I feel the same, and I'm wondering if you do as well. Elon Musk seems a little bit different too. And I will admit, I was kind of all in on Elon Musk. Like I really thought, and I still give him tons of credit, but he has fought a war that few people will ever understand really what he went through to really rescue speech at a moment where it was going to be the darkening. It was over. If they had gotten Twitter, it would have been done. And we saw what was happening, obviously, with all the COVID stuff, taking videos down of people talking about their own experiences with the shot. And then Elon Musk rescued Twitter and he went to war with that. I mean, you remember him on stage screaming at I think it was Bob Iger of Disney and saying, you're not going to blackmail me and do all of these things. And now it seems, and I don't want to say that he's been blackmailed at all, but I just feel like it's a different Elon. And it could be what you're speaking about. Day in and day out, there is going to be some sort of a fatigue that manifests of having to fight people with a tremendous amount of power who do not let up one single day.
Oh, they never let up. And you have to choose your enemies, right? And sometimes you have to do a deal with people who you perhaps don't even always want to do a deal with to survive. It's difficult at the very, very top. We're talking about the highest possible echelons of power. And there's a lot of different interests coming your way. And you have to sit there and go, can I really war all of them? Or can I just ally with this one team? which is unfortunate because people who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. It seems to be the same team every time.
Mm-hmm.
If I can just ally with this one team, I'm good against everything else.
Right.
And then people sitting in a position and they're like, yeah, I guess, I want to live and I want my children to live. And because it comes down to that. I don't think many people realize how violent the world is. We live in a world now where we have all of these facades on top of violence. But really, the world is just guns and bullets and violence. That's the reality of the world. When we talk about something like a court case, what is a court case? Well, a court case is a piece of paper. But if there was no threat of violence behind it, I wouldn't go, or no one would go, right? You get a speeding ticket. You don't pay the ticket. They add more money. You don't pay it. They say go to court. You don't go. They send another summons. You don't go. They send an officer. He says come to court. You say no. Violence. It's all just garbage on top of violence. And at the highest echelons of power, what they normally do is they skip all the garbage first. They'll sit down and say, look, you can do whatever and you can be Mr. Smartass, but it doesn't matter how much money you have or how powerful you believe you are. Bullets kill people and you have children and they're going to die. And I've been around. Now, let's talk about this professionally. If I know drug gangs who do that over control of a street corner, you're telling me they're not going to do that for control of the largest economies on the planet? You're telling me there's not going to be a single conversation about the fact that your children are walking the street for the largest economies on the planet? It's a very scary world these men live in. And I feel like they've had to do a deal with certain interests to survive, unfortunately. And it kind of feels that way and it's scary. And then you end up looking at your own position and you're like, okay, well, I do run my mouth a lot. But having a political view and having actual power are different things. These people have actual power to press buttons. And those are the ones they have to keep their finger on. So it's I don't want to say anything bad about Elon. I really agree with you. He truly saved the world.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a hypocrisy in so many people's views. You know, I talk to people and they're anti, let's say the UK right now, where they're locking down everybody for telling the truth about the immigration. And they understand that the native people of the UK want to keep their country British and they want to protect it. And they completely understand that. But then they're against Gaza. And I'm like, to me, you either believe in people's ancestral right to their homeland and to defend it, or you don't. But people seem to always have this hypocrisy on certain issues. It's very interesting.
Well, that's psychology too, and I spoke of that on my show, and obviously I've earned the full ire of the mainstream media, and I don't care, because for me, and that offer was there. I mean, it was very clear to me that this is the one issue, if you don't talk about, well, you can maintain a comfortable life for you and your kids. But I just didn't like how many times I kept finding in the history of Israel and in the president of Israel defense for pedophiles. It just didn't work for me. Like, that Zionists were so hardcore about Israel, were defending pedophilia. And I pressed an accidental button when I started speaking about Sigmund Freud. The Freud family is what created propaganda. Edward Bernays, the Freud family is what created PR, the biggest PR firms in the world. And they just keep coming up with pedophilia scandals. Clement Freud, pedophile. Sigmund Freud, pedophile. His father, a pedophile. Defending his friend, William Fleece, a pedophile. And when you can then trace that, and it's funny you talk about the streets, these were people that were weapons dealers and drug dealers that then started Hollywood, right? Yeah. They started Hollywood. Charlie Chaplin, a pedophile, who was under one of their thumbs. And you start realizing when you speak to people in Hollywood and they start speaking about the fact that there's so much pedophilia that's always taken place throughout Hollywood from the 20s, which you could say was the golden age that really Hollywood got established, all the way through to now, the ADL got started defending a pedophile. Mm. So to me, if this state is going to be on the side of pedophilia, and for whatever reason people keep turning the other cheek, that everyone who supports the state seems to be okay with the pedophile origins, the ADL is now involved in our government. We know that a lot of these people in our government are being blackmailed. I wonder why. I personally, you want to hear my conspiracy theories, I think pornography websites are basically, they're able to figure out what your demented interests are. So these people, they're making you more and more perverse, more and more perverse. Suddenly you're watching some weird stuff, and then they got you watching some 12-year-old girl, whatever it is. Boom, you're under their control. And I think this is what Jeffrey Epstein, all of this stuff is about, getting men who would be in positions of power to acquiesce to some pedophilic pornography, and then they're under their control. I really believe that.
I think you're right. And there's two things I'm going to say. First, I'm going to say they've checked my hard drives. And I love to say that to everybody who says, Andrew, you're a human trafficker. They've literally checked my hard drives. For the last 4 years, my hard drives have been checked. Check the hard drives of 99% of people in the mainstream. Go check their hard drives. Here we are, 4 years into this human trafficking garbage. No one's even seen a video or a picture of a single woman claiming to be human trafficked. Right? It's completely insane. Secondly, you're right. There's also a psychological component, which I think ties into the masculine, because men are built in a way where we like to show dominance, and you show dominance in many different ways. But one of the ways you do it is by having access to things other people can't have access to. So I feel like if you get these losers and then you put them in a position of power for the first time in their life, and then you tell them that nobody's allowed to be a pedophile, but you are, that actually makes it more tempting than it was before. Not because of the pedophilic interest, it's because they're allowed to do something others can't do. And that's a power ego trip, which once again makes it more appealing. It's kind of interesting how the male mind will work. But I know if you take an idiot and you give him some power and say, you can do this, but no one else can, he's going to be tempted by that thing no matter what it is. I mean, that's why men do a lot of things. That's the reason we buy fancy cars. Is it really the car, or is it because other people can't get it? That's the whole point. It's the peacocking. It's like, look what I can do. And amongst their perverse social circles, I guess it's a badge of honor to a degree. Mm-hmm. And then we're also going to talk about the fact that a lot of these men are not particularly attractive and haven't been attractive their whole lives. Like, I have another theory, and once again, I have no data at all to back this up, but I find it very interesting that it's Western politicians which are primarily caught up with these things, primarily. You know, like you see a Russian billionaire, a Russian oligarch, whatever, and he has a wife, and then he gets caught cheating with his girlfriend. He has some girlfriend somewhere. Cool. And then we'll be like, that's terrible. Yeah, cool, it's terrible, fine. But then what do the Western politicians do? They walk around with Michelle. They walk around with their wife, and then they get caught on islands. So, like, is that any better?
Well,
like, is that worse?
Western politicians gay? That's another thing, and that is what kind of leads me to believe that a lot of these people are being blackmailed and that they're being selected for these positions. I mean, Emmanuel Macron is a homosexual. There's no question about that. Zelensky is a homosexual. Yep. You've got I was going to say, I almost said Fidel Castro. Trudeau, Fidel's son. You got Trudeau. He's a homosexual. Yep. Barack Obama was a homosexual. Yep. And then finally, when we get in the West, a president who's definitely not a homosexual, Donald Trump, they just freak out. They completely lose their minds. This guy cannot be president. He's not allowed to be president because there's no aspect of the most extreme form of blackmail, which is like, if we know that you have engaged in pedophilia, that you've been involved in any of these weird sexual scenarios, we can control you in office. Yeah. And there's obviously the deep state thing is not a conspiracy theory. It's part of the reason why they didn't want Tucker to conduct that interview with Putin, because the first thing Putin said is like, I don't deal with your president. I'm dealing with the CIA.
Yeah.
Right. That is the deep state. He's like, the
president, I don't talk to him.
The CIA is who's controlling your nations, which means that our democracy, the republic, it's an illusion.
Yep. Oh, 100% true. And when I say things, I don't, obviously exceptions disprove the rule. I talk in general, but in general, it is the masculine which protects the society in general. And in general, feminine are more accepting of certain things, and gays are closer to the feminine. So we say that we have men in charge. None of these people you named are men. None of them are masculine. There's nothing masculine about them. The true masculine essence is being prepared to die on a hill. And the number one thing we died for since the dawn of human time was our land and our women and our children. That's what we died for. And the reason we were prepared to die for them is because we know we could never be assimilated into another tribe. If there was another tribe on the other side of the hill, even if they outnumbered us 10-1, we knew that if they managed to get into the village, we were dead. The women can assimilate into their tribe because the women can join their tribe and have children. The women will be taken. We die. So we're prepared to fight. So the masculine essence, truthfully, is to be able to stand up against an army you can't beat and fight to the bitter end. And that's why they don't want anyone masculine in power, because then they can't be influenced. We just talked about those shadow figures making the phone calls. We don't want anyone who sends their like Trump and says, no, I don't care. That's not how this is going to go. So they like weakness. So even the idea of having a man in charge, all these people we just named aren't men. They're homosexual, which brings them pretty much close to girls. And when I say girls, not in a negative, insulting way, I'm trying to explain the feminine mindset of we can assimilate with the enemy more than we must fight and die on this hill with the enemy. And that's why they're doing it all. And you're right. It's certainly a coincidence. And it's also an extremely interesting coincidence that, global homo, LGBT, that is the culture of the West now. It's the number one thing you can't insult. You can't go against, you can't degrade, you can burn an American flag before you can burn a pride flag. You'll catch a prison term for that. It's truly the new God. You can insult Jesus all day long, but you can't insult LGBT in a Christian country. And if you look at any of the American embassies in all of their vassal states, the first thing they do is try and push this LGBT insanity. They try and push this global homo everywhere they can to erode the masculine spirit. We talk about how the family's under attack, and it certainly is. There's a lot of ways it's under attack. LGBT is one of them. It's one of the things they use. But, there's a million different ways they've destroyed the nucleus of the cell. I was having this conversation the other day. I was talking to somebody, and we were saying, well, we're talking about men dying on hills, like I just said. It was after my Jesus protest, after I protested, because I was supposed to go to jail for that. because I didn't have a license. I didn't have a permit to protest. I'm on judicial control. I'm supposed to get 6 months mandatory. So I said bye to everyone, said to Tristan, ready for jail, packed a bag, went there to go to jail. So put me in jail for respecting Jesus. Put me in jail. I dare you. And even they knew better than that. So they were just like, please go home. So they didn't put me in jail. But I was ready to do it. And I was talking about dying on a hill. And I was talking to a girl and she's like, yeah, but men aren't men anymore. And I said, but this is the thing that's so interesting if you actually analyze how they've destroyed society, because you're right, men aren't men anymore. But if you want to talk about dying on hills, you don't just need rich men or famous men. You actually need the common man. You need every man. And most men in my position, especially financially, are not interested in getting in any kind of trouble, right? We're interested in protecting our profits more than we are protecting a particular street or a particular society or a particular ideal. Most of the people at my level of wealth just sell out and just bounce. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, you need the common man to be prepared to die on a hill. And that's why certain agendas, like when you talk about this LGBT stuff, or when they talk about, or they show that if you marry a woman and that woman betrays you and she wants the son's penis chopped off, then she's going to win. Or feminism, or all these different things. I tried to explain to her that if a man doesn't feel like he's the king of his own household, why would he feel like he has any duty to protect anything? Right? So we don't even have common men with a woman having a family in a society, and the man feels like he's the head of the house and he feels like he has a duty to defend that house. Even the people the common man and the common woman, when they are getting together, the man doesn't feel like he's the king of the house, so he doesn't feel like he has an obligation to protect it. And then there's a whole bunch of men, a large swath of the population, who don't get any girls at all. And girls are just on social media trying to chase the top 5% of men who are only interested in protecting their profits and nothing else, who are globalist anyway because they fly all around the world. And we look at Western society as a whole. I was talking to this girl and she's like, yeah, but men don't stick up for us. I'm like, the man you need to stick up for you is the exact kind of man you ignore. You don't even reply to his messages. You want the guy over there in Mykonos who has no interest in anything but yacht fuel pricing. Mm-hmm. So like society is actually so truly broken that they've managed to just infiltrate it from every single level because the nucleus of the cell is damaged. And LGBT is another huge part of that, right? They are so desperate to prevent the idea of a man loving a woman having kids and the man being the head of the house and the man being prepared to protect that house from all ideals. That's what they're scared of.